So just as a little bit of a wrap up for you who aren't here, and we can continue the conversations here. There's just a few kind of ideas that we've been developing or thinking a little bit more about in terms of EAL students in mathematics. And so there's three of them here, and you'll see that some of the work that we're developing kind of fits in these three. So one of them is about the explicit teaching of and modeling of vocab. And we talk with our classroom teachers, especially our math community teachers, all the time about like explicitly teaching mathematics vocabulary. And so you'll see on the hub, you'll see like the vocabulary cards that I've developed for all of the grades. And they look, just for those people who are here, they look like this. So you'll see them up on like math walls and different places like that. Tagged on EAL on the Math Hub as well are these cards. So if you're looking for this, they're up on the Math Hub, and these cards are correspond with the curriculum for those grade levels. And so this is a grade 2 pack of cards. You'll see Pattern Core, which we talked about at the beginning, is on this grade 2 pack of cards. And there's visuals all the way up to grade 4 in these kind of the old version of the cards. And so those are up on the Math Hub and teachers can use them. Some of your students in EAL, even though they may be 6 students, some of this language from grade 2 or grade 1 or kindergarten might be tripping them up. So depending on where they are, you may have to go back a few different grades just to give them that basic language that is part of mathematics. And the language builds on itself. So when there's gaps in language that are represented by these cards, that will absolutely of an issue for students as they move forward. The new version, and I think Tim and Aaron mentioned this, that is kind of in development and it's taking a little bit of time, looks like this. And so I started actually with grade 8 because I was getting a lot of questions from teachers saying like there's no visual version at the grade 8 level. And at the time when I first developed these, a lot of our 7, 8 teachers talked about how they would develop the visuals with the kids. So they would put the word up there and then develop the visual simultaneously, and then both would go on the wall so that the visual would be created by the students and have the word up there as well. But a lot of our teachers have been asking for visuals and the word in grade 8. And so I made an effort to put something together, and it became really clear to me when I started making these grade 8 cards is that you needed the definition. Like a lot of the image didn't quite hold the whole extent of it. And so these ones have definitions as well as image where I could make it fit. And so grade 8 is done in terms of I have it done, and I'm still looking for feedback. The more people who look at it, the better it usually gets. And so I never say anything is completely out of draft, but the grade 8 is done. Grade 7 is partially done, probably about 3/4, and then I'm going to work my way back. So the vocabulary cards hopefully will be something that'll help. Freyer model is that explicit teaching of mathematics language as well. And so there's a post on the Math Hub that you might have seen when you were doing your scavenger hunt. And the Freyer model is really about helping kids identify the vocabulary. What are the characteristics? What are examples? And they could draw pictures, right? So if I'm drawing a picture, if the word is square, I might be drawing pictures of different size squares, big squares, small squares, blue squares, green squares. But the kind of the nuance that the addition through the Freyer model is also drawing examples or non-examples. So this is a triangle. It is not a square. This is a circle. It is not a square. And so we could do it visually, and we can also do it with words. So some of your students might benefit from that, and non-EAL students would benefit from that as well, just for the reasons we talked about at the beginning, that math is its own language and there's we use differently. And I think the other thing that we've been talking about in math community and need to continue to talk about, especially to support our learners, is the use of sentence frames and requiring students when they're playing a game or doing an activity to be verbal and to explain the thinking. And so just even something for those of you not here, I'm holding up an example of just a sentence strip where I put on I have blank, you have blank, blank is greater than blank. And so if we're playing a game like war, right? We're flipping over two cards, and I add my two cards, you flip over two cards, you add your two cards. I would say, 6, I have 6, you have 4, 6 is greater than 4. But just helping them continue to say the language. And our non-EAL students would benefit from this as well, because it really solidifies the understanding. And so I think one of the things we can continue to do is continue to push in on classroom instruction that has sentence frames like this. But I think if you are getting requests from classroom teachers, like how can I support EAL learners, think about the activity that they're doing and what would the sentence frame look like. And it could be a sentence strip like this. It could just be an index card that you write, here's what we're going to say, and put it down there so that kids, our students can fill in those blanks where they need to, but they practice using the language over and over again. All of those I think could be helpful. And a lot of the resources that I have little speech balloons on it so that we continually have an opportunity for kids to practice the language in context. And so it's not devoid of an activity, it's not devoid of the game, but they're actually using the language there. And we can be really strategic with what these sentence frames look like depending on what kids are doing in the classroom. So even helping teachers just say, what is the activity? Where would the language be? How can we scaffold that for our kids? And I think both English language learners and non could do this. And the benefit of having our non-English language learners doing this, not only is it solidifying their understanding, but our English language learners are hearing the math language over and over again. So it's that repetition. I think whenever possible, contextualized instructions. So we have a lot, we're really pushing in on using visuals, using manipulatives, having them actually do that work and physically move things around. When we say addition, they're actually pushing together two quantities and talking about adding them. When we're talking about subtraction, we are actually taking different items off the page or off the mat or whatever we're using, but really using those manipulatives to help us. And then there again, I would think when we're using manipulatives, what is the language? And can we scaffold that with a sentence frame or something like that? And a lot of visuals. So you'll see on the Math Hub, oftentimes if I've tagged it EAL, there's usually either a language component to it or a visual component to it that I think might be helpful for you. And then the last thing is to create community within our classrooms so that EAL learners are a valued and valuable member of the mathematics community within the classroom and can be a part of that discourse. And that we allow them, we scaffold opportunities for them to be a part of the discourse. We also make sure they are a part of the discourse. And sometimes the easier thing to do is to have them work on their own. But then they're devoid of the language. And we know that language and math are so linked that if we eliminate the language, we are not doing a service to them. And it really is, I was saying before, it's short-term gain and long-term shaky ground that we'd be on for our students. So helping them be a part of that and creating those norms of collaboration within the classroom where mistakes, I often talk about this in math class, that mistakes are expected, inspected, and respected. And so everyone is making mistakes in classroom, language learners and non, but we respect those mistakes, and that it's a safe place for us to try out new thinking, but also for our English language learners to try out language, and it's okay. And so we make sure that we create those norms and foster opportunities for our language learners to work in safe places with our English speakers as well. And teachers often know where those safe places exist and make sure that those safe places are fostered within the classroom. So I think these three are kind of the way we've pushed in right now. And it's definitely, I'm not saying we've arrived on this journey. We're definitely at the beginning of our journey in trying to create supports and opportunities for our English language learners to be successful in the mathematics classroom and have the language that's going to support them moving forward. And I think that's what I have. Yep, I'm gonna. So everybody can hear it. Okay. Sorry.
There we go. So Jennifer talks about being at the beginning of the journey, but I can
testify to the fact that she's been thinking like this for quite a while. And so it's really, the fact that she's got lots of resources on the hub that are linked specifically for EAL learners. She's been thinking like this for a while. So it's not necessarily the beginning of her journey, but we're very excited to work with her. And thank you everybody for coming. And thank you out there in webinar land for being pigs. Hopefully this was a good experience for you. Have a great night, everybody.